Welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. Our host is integrative medicine Dr. Michael Finkelstein. Michael offers medical advice from a holistic paradigm, including both medical and metaphysical philosophies from the full spectrum of human experience. Slow Medicine Radio offers fresh ideas on how to attain a state of wellness that seems distant given the limitations of today's medical paradigm. It introduces you to thought leaders who connect the dots between theory and practice, examining health from a broad perspective with regards to medical diagnoses, conventional and alternative therapies, healthcare policy, and related topics that warrant further thought and discussion. Slow Medicine Radio does not prescribe to take this or do that. Instead, it offers an open-minded, intelligent, and practical approach to living, resulting in greater health individually and collectively. Here is Dr. Michael Finkelstein, the founder of Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York.
Well, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein, and this is a show where we explore the essence of what makes us healthy. And today, as most of you know, it's Independence Day. The country is in celebration mode where we are honoring the birth of a country which hundreds of years ago, at that time, really was a big deal. But if we think about independence specifically, not necessarily just the birth of this country, but we think of independence as something that most of us strive for, I want to reflect on how that actually affects our health. To join me in the show today is my wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, who is a psychospiritual counselor, works with me, obviously, where we live and work at Sunraven in Bedford. Her area of greatest interest and expertise, I might say, is in relationships. She's done a lot of work studying relationships from the psychospiritual point of view, from the point of view of imago therapy, coined by Harville Hendricks. She does a lot of things just amassing all of her intuitive powers, and we live together and model our own relationship in that context. And today on Slow Medicine Radio, by the way, this is 1460 on your AM dial, and worldwide it's WVOX.com. And please text your friends, tell them to dial in, because what we're going to be talking about today is independence, ... so what? And what I mean by that is, in general, we think independence is a good thing. You know, we just think of the birth of this country 200 and something years ago, separating from the tyrannical rule of the monarchy in England. But where have we really come? And do we really want to be independent? In our lives, the fact is we tend to be codependent. We tend to be dependent on other people to support us. And in particular, when we think of our families, when we think of our love life, when we think of what keeps us awake at night, very often it has a lot to do with the people that we live with, we really care about, and we're very much affected by how they're doing and how our relationship is doing. So the fact is we sort of like to achieve a balance between independence and our ability to be whole and healthy on our own, but yet we realize how that is so tied up in other people. And this gets into the challenges that many of us face. So, Robin, my dearest, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio, and to speak to us today specifically on the nature of what makes a relationship a good one and how we balance the desire for independence and wholeness, the ability to withstand, let's say, challenges, let's say in the form of criticism or people who are not necessarily always in alignment with exactly what we're doing, but yet we love them, we want to work with them, we need to learn to dance. So there's that balance. I'm just wondering what your initial thoughts on that subject are.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today, your partner. It's exciting to be here, and I think part of that question and answer to that question is being able to communicate and share our thoughts and feelings with another person in a process that people can receive us.
So right away when people think of their relationships, and they know when they're going well. So you're out to a romantic dinner, you're dancing, you're making love. These are all things, these are times that people say, gee, I wish it was like that all the time. But it's not.
Right.
So there are times when we have disagreements, where we see things somewhat differently, where one wants to go right, the other wants to go left. And so how does that get navigated in a way where people stay in the boat, where they stay in a state of harmony and love, yet they can express themselves?
Right. That's a great question. I think it's about, again, clarity of what we are trying to express to the other person. Perhaps pausing and understanding what we are feeling. And we are not a society where we pause much. I think taking a pause and just reflecting what we would like to express to our partners, and to also add to understand when we feel different emotions. It's important, very important for us to be able to access that ourselves.
So let's use an example. So you come home from a long day of work. It's 6 or 7 o'clock. Not only are you tired from the work and all the difficulties you had during the day just dealing with all those people, but you come home, you're a little hungry, you're a little tired, and you have certain expectations when you walk in the door. The expectations are you're greeted with a hug, maybe there's great food already prepared and available for you. Everyone who lives with you, whether that's your spouse and your children, are all in love with you. They can't wait to see you. They've had days that have nothing to do with yours, of course, and they should be immediately available in all aspects. But reality is, generally speaking, everyone has a day like that. And so you come home and you meet other people who've had a similar day, and you're not necessarily on the same page at moment one. So how do you come in? Let's say you're the one walking in, you're tired, you're hungry, you have feelings. How would you express yourself when you walk in the door?
Right. Well, exactly that. I think first things first is to assess and know what you need. There may be essential needs that your partner and your family are not going to be able to tend to. So I think, again, it's about clarity. And once we have the clarity of perhaps what we might need a break, we might need 5 minutes to just unwind and take time for ourselves. I think that's most important. And to be able to articulate that with your loved ones.
Okay, so you said something I think is a really good tip, which is, let's say you're making that transition from home and traffic and work, and you walk in and you've got all that energy, you've got the fatigue, you've got the hunger, and you have some expectations, and your comment was maybe you need to check in with yourself first.
Exactly.
To determine maybe what it is that you're feeling at the moment, lists of feelings, lists of body experiences like hunger, fatigue, etc. And before you engage, I'm asking you this question, is this what you're adding to the check-in with yourself? Before you engage, maybe pause.
Exactly.
Pause to check in, but pause also maybe to breathe, to make the transition so that you're not hot and heavy coming in.
Absolutely. That pause, I believe, is the most important aspect for relationship to self, getting clarity, because we're so on a automatic reactionary energy. It's about slowing down, taking the breath, breathing, assessing. That's that beautiful pause.
So, and again, just to remind you, here we are on Independence Day, where many of us are in the mode of celebration of the birthday of a country, and we're partying, we're with, in general, probably a lot of people we normally spend time with, our family and friends, and we're actually in a more relaxed mode. So if you're listening, though, you realize that it's those people that are around you right now at a time like this, maybe celebration, where you really want to have a good day. This is the day you really want to have a good day. So how do you park the week, the long weekend, the fatigue, the other challenges, the last 10 conversations you may have had with your boss that didn't go so well, and maybe a few with your spouse and your kids and your older parents, and you have all those things going on. And, Robin, you're making a good point, which is take care of yourself a little bit too, in that, recognizing that all those things are natural, normal. It would make anyone tired, anyone hungry for certain things. So give yourself a break, give yourself permission to feel those things. But before you engage with somebody else and expect them to fill some of your holes, just check in with yourself. And, that's the nature of slow medicine.
Check in with your own self to see what holes you may need to fulfill yourself.
So
I'm sorry.
Give us an example of what would be a common hole somebody would have.
With couples in mind, I believe it's about, as you were mentioning before, expectations. I think expectations can be a setup for disconnecting with your partner unless you are able to articulate that. So an example would be perhaps, I know for myself, I'll catch myself sometimes thinking that you're understanding and following me wherever I am, wherever my thought pattern may be, and you may be somewhere else in your own process. Perhaps you're cooking and, involved. So I think it's really important to understand that how important it is to be able to access the information clearly with our partner to see if a person is available for us.
So, and part of that, I'm guessing, is to orient somebody. So let's say you're looking to dance. Let's say this is not necessarily a conversation or sharing difficult feelings, but let's say something as basic and practical as just dancing. First thing you do is you put on some music, or you at least agree to what kind of beat you're going to be dancing to. If you don't have that in agreement, you could be doing the tango and I could be doing, hip hop, and those are two very different dances. So you sort of communicate in a way which is, okay, this is what we're going to do now. And then there's still a challenge, which is now to move your feet in concert, but at least you're oriented to the same fundamental rhythm.
Right. That makes sense. And I'll go back to how important it is to have clarity to know if we are available to be present for another human being at that very time. So that it's back to, are you available? It's back to really a deep connection of communication, which we don't really have the skills.
So one of the other tips, which I think is really valuable, and I've heard you say this too, is before you engage somebody or even land on them those expectations, which could be either directed or just sort of assumed, is you ask the question. You say, I've got something going on right now. Are you available? Even that question. Of course, you have to be prepared for the answer is, no, I'm not available right now. I'm in the middle of making you dinner, or I'm taking care of the kids, or I'm washing the car, or whatever else somebody might be doing. But the notion is that once you ask that question, you're respecting the other for perhaps what they may be doing. And then once you get agreement that this is a good time, then now you have at least the basis to begin something. And I know when it comes to conversations that are a little bit more loaded, difficult feelings that you may have toward your partner, availability is something I know in the work of Imago that you feel is very vital to couples getting along.
Absolutely. It's essential to have the skill to be able to, again, ask your partner if they're available to communicate, and then to actually both agree. Again, that beautiful dance you're talking about, for someone to dance, you both need to be in a flow within.
Well, that's where I get to that balance between independence, wholeness, self-love, self-worth, self-care. We all need to do that to be a good partner.
Absolutely.
We need to be in reasonable shape to be available to somebody else. And so if both partners had at least one part of their agreement in their relationship is to take care of themselves, at least in part that way, they'll be in better shape to deal with the rocky roads that they wind up facing. You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio on WVOX 1460 AM and WVOX.com. If you'd like to call and maybe speak to Robin and I, then you can. The number is 914-636-0110. And we're going to speak to you in the second half of our show about some of the programs that we're going to be doing at Sunraven in the upcoming month or so, particularly a couples program on the evening of August 11th. But we'll get back to that after we take a short break. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. You can find out more about the show and the work of Dr. Michael Finkelstein by visiting his website, slowmedicinedoctor.com. Slow Medicine Radio is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, dedicated to providing community-centered experiential and reflective learning for individuals, families, and groups, offering educational programs, events, and resources, as well as insightful health evaluations with customized medical guidance. Dr. Finkelstein works with his wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, at their farm, Sunraven, in Bedford, New York, and they invite you to visit and take advantage of this unique resource, including men's and women's groups and couples programs. If you think about it, much of what we experience when we don't feel well is a result of the fast world and how it affects us. Therefore, if fast is the disease, then slow is the medicine. Visit Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York. Go to slowmedicinedoctor.com or call 914-218-3113. And thank you for tuning in Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 1460 WVOX.
Well, welcome back to Slow Medicine Radio. So I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein. I'm here with my wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, and we're talking about independence, Independence Day, and relationships, which frankly are anything but independent. And I would say that that's a great thing. This is why I think sometimes we make so much of a term, and I think maybe in the 60s or 70s when I was growing up, there was such a thing for individuals to achieve states of independence, self-reliance. I think a lot of that had to do with the desire of women at that time to seek equality, to be treated with equality, and as a result needed to really push that agenda, which was to have the ability to have the opportunities that the man-dominated world at the time had. So there was that push for independence, but to some extent, I believe we've overshot. Robin, do you think so?
I do agree. Women, especially in particularly, need other women around to help nurture. Years ago, there were families that were in community, and it's essential to have support. And I'm finding more and more in my practice that women are feeling isolated and disconnected from others, women in particular. And it takes a community to nurture each other.
I think there's a movement back for women to come together.
Right.
And share their stories, their feelings, because even though they have accomplished a lot of successes over these last 50 years, I think they've maybe are feeling also unheard still, especially in the home, especially in other pockets of society. So one of the things that you do, and I know you do because it happens in our home on Wednesday and Friday mornings, is a women's group. I want to share a little bit about what you observe when women come for that.
Right. To your point about women that have been driven to be independent and self-reliant, when women come together, and what, in my experience, the groups hold a container for women to be able to be soft and invite in their feminine aspects of themselves, which is not doing, it's relaxing, receiving, loving, nurturing each other.
Right. I think it's vital, and based on the number of women who come and how long they've been coming, dedicated, and how it's growing, it seems like this is really a fundamental part of individuals, in this case women, trying to be healthy. I also have a men's group, and there's something very similar about the desire for people to get out of the gender-loaded spaces where political correctness sometimes gets in the way of people freely expressing themselves and are allowed to freely express themselves with us, in some ways, moderating the conversation so that it doesn't get to a point beyond where people gets destructive. But there's still a need to share certain feelings and to reflect on how our culture still is challenging for both men and women, respectively. And we have a couples program, which I know you're passionate about. So a little bit about that. Why don't you talk a little bit about our couples program?
Oh, okay. We have set a date just to have an experiential experience. I believe that is mostly what we do at our home, Slow Medicine. Our home of Slow Medicine is to connect and have a direct experience. So through some of the tools that we have, I help, and when you join me, we help couples, give them tools to enhance their communication skills.
And so we have an evening program coming up on August 11th called an Evening of Intimacy for Couples, which is open at 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening, and we're going to share some of those experiential workshops and skill sets. Obviously, we, in 2-hour time, can't cover it all, but the idea is to collect a group of couples who will come on a regular basis and then over a course of time share moments where they get schooled in various ways of communicating and of living together, and by virtue of being in the room with other couples, not only attention is on them all the time, so that it's also enjoyable. Right. And you see people individually, couples as well.
very passionate about the couples. It's amazing to see couples come in and be sitting on the opposite sides of the couch, and before they leave, just through a simple process of communication and dialogue, that they are feeling connected, and I would use the word secure in the relationship. So we omit judging and our opinions. We really learn how to listen to our partners so we can really receive them, and it's both benefit for internally, which we all need to be heard and really appreciated.
So going back to the first half of our conversation, when we talked about coming home, asking the question, are you available?
That's right.
After you have already checked in with yourself to identify what those feelings are, what your needs are. And the next step in this is what you just spoke about, which is there's ways then of listening to then what comes up, suspending judgment, suspending certain feelings on your own as the listener, so that you can hear fully what somebody is dealing with. Something beautiful about when couples do that for each other. Even though the feelings can be difficult, the idea is not to negotiate them at that time, but it's just simply share feelings and to know that everyone has feelings, and a lot of those feelings would make sense if we had the type of day that most of us have. So there's something beautiful and lovely about it. And it gets people back into that state of harmony and flow and trust and loving that usually typify the beginning of those types of relationships.
And you also learn a lot more about your partner when you're not thinking about how you need to react or respond to the other.
So it's
really
actually a
beautiful.
brilliant process, and it's beautiful, and our home is very inviting. We also will do something coming up, actually a week from yesterday, so July 10th, Sunday, which we call the Slow Medicine Cafe. So we invite people to our house for brunch, essentially. I'll make food from our farm. We have chickens and a large vegetable garden. We have animals, so it's a beautiful place. And what I will make is really brunch-like, all from the garden. And the idea, with a little music in the background, a friend of ours playing the guitar, is to just gather and to share a beautiful day together without any other agenda than just a couple of 2 hours of slow medicine. So we call that the Slow Medicine Cafe. And that, like the show, is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, which is our attempt to find ways of facilitating and making available some of the work that we do for people who have a hard time affording such programs. So the Slow Medicine Foundation sponsors the Slow Medicine Cafe. All proceeds go to that cause, which I think is really quite wonderful. And then we have a DREAM program coming up Thursday, July 14th in the evening. A good friend of ours, Warren Falcon.
Bringing us to how important it is, being that it's Independence Day, and through the dream work is to really understand how your dreams can, how you can understand what might be going on inside through your dreams. And it's a beautiful way to deepen your intimacy with yourself. So we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah, a lot of people think going to bed at night is somewhat of a boring process, even though they may be exhausted and can't wait to sleep. But the dream world itself is illustrative of a lot of, as you said, of what's going on underneath the surface of our own psyche. And there's a lot of richness in there. And if we explore that with some intention, with a couple of, with some advice, we could really get clear on certain things, and it's a lot of fun. So that will take place on the evening of Thursday, July 14th. We have a garden co-op where people come and work our garden, and the open house for that, and potluck lunch, and a lecture on herbs and herbalism will be Saturday the 16th. And again, we have the evening of intimacy for couples up ahead on August 11th, because I think I really want to emphasize that the idea for us is that we are in a relationship, and as much as we seek independence, and it's a nice thing, what do we want independence for? We want independence to flourish in our lives and to connect with others. One of the most interesting examples, especially on a farm, of codependence is bees, bee colonies, and we have those at Sunraven. In fact, we will have a workshop on the art and science of beekeeping later in August. So all these things are going on. We have a really beautiful life, Robin. I have to say that having you here on the show and sharing some of your words and wisdom is wonderful. Obviously, we will have more time to talk and share this with people who are listening to Slow Medicine Radio. And of course, you can get more information about the show by going to slowmedicine.org. You could write us at info@slowmedicine.org. If any of the things that we discussed sound interesting to you and you want to speak to me or Robin directly for a few minutes just to share some thoughts or to inquire about what we do that might assist you, we are available. Our work is dedicated really to supporting the health and vitality of everyone around us, our community. And so we wish you really well on this day where we celebrate independence. But what I seek is a world one day where we are in harmony in a codependent way, but just where we don't need independence, where that is something of the past, where we are just living like an orchestra, playing beautiful music together, somewhat enjoying the soloists, and then we have our own opportunities back and forth. So anyway, you're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. Thank you again for tuning in. We're on the air every Monday at this time, 5 o'clock, 1460 a.m., or worldwide at wvox.com. I wish you a wonderful day. Robin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Blessings to everybody.